I want to talk to you right now about meat and its production in our diet. You can see, you might recognize that looks like some In-N-Out burger, and I think so. I think that's In-N-Out. I don't know what kind of fries those are. Anyway, and then some of my favorite looks like quesadilla tacos. But from asking my students over the years, many of you still have meat as a part of your diet. So we need to talk about what that means in an environmental context. And what it means is that you're really taking a hit on the environment when you eat. Anytime you eat meat, meat just takes a lot more energy and land and water, pesticides, chemicals to produce versus a vegetarian diet, especially one that doesn't involve any dairy or eggs, because keeping any animals alive in a big group to make it cost effective has a pretty big impact. You can see 1/4 pound. This might, quarter pound burger, almost 7 pounds of grain, 53 gallons of water, and almost 75 square feet of land for cattle to graze on. That's a lot, especially when you consider you could just eat that grain and get a lot more calories than you can out of a hamburger. But this is how we've chosen to eat. And the way our food system is set up and government subsidies, it really encourages this too. So as we talk about with everything in environmental science, there are tons of government programs and incentives and subsidies and taxes. They've kind of shaped the world as we know it. And this is one thing where if we did have some kind of a regulation push to change our eating habits, I think it would could make a big difference. So here's an historical graph that shows consumption from 1965 to 2010. You see there was a small increase. In the 80s it kind of took off, especially chicken, in terms of the amount we ate. And pork and beef kind of stabilized, largely because there was a lot of health concern about a lot of, in the media, there was a lot of speculation that eating beef, was bad for your health. And there is some evidence to support that. But health and your risk of getting, heart attack, stroke, other sorts of problems, health-wise, they're multifactorial, and diet has a lot to do with it, but there's many things involved with that. So methods of meat production, how do we do it? Some way that it's done is called CAFO, Concentrated Animal Feeding Operation, commonly called a feedlot. If you are driving around on the freeway or highway in a lot of places in California, you will come upon a very funky, nasty smell of animal poop. Most likely that is a feedlot. On I-5, if you go to San Francisco, you will smell this. And driving around Chino area, Chino has a lot of, West Covina out there, a lot of feedlots for dairy. And also the other way, feedlot, or you could have free range grazing, and that's just what it sounds like. The animals just walk around in nature, eat grasses on stuff they would naturally, and that has positive and negative too. So here is a feedlot, concentrated animal feeding operation, tons of animals together in one spot. I mentioned before, this creates an enormous amount of poop, animal poop, that needs to be dealt with. It can leak into streams and rivers in the water table. Also the smell, the dust from this is not very good for your health. And diseases can spread through these concentrated animal feeding situations. So a lot of times they'll have to be on antibiotics to keep them from getting sick. So meat production is definitely less efficient than agriculture. Growing plants, about 20 times more land to produce the same amount of calories from meat as it does plants. 20 times more land. You can see this graph. Soy is the clear most efficient way to get, especially complete protein. What that means is all essential amino acids that you can't make in your body are, let me write it out, are contained in soy. Rice, corn, legumes, you do have to be a little more careful, but it's really not that hard. A lot of people worry, oh, you're not going to get enough protein if you don't eat meat. Well, you can get plenty of protein if you have a plant diet. That's not really a valid concern. It can be easier to get all the protein, but remember, you can be very malnourished on a meat-based diet. In fact, many people are. So it's all about getting, really, most people just have problems eating vegetables. Let's be frank about it. So if you listen to me, eat more vegetables. Eat more vegetables and fruits. You can't eat too much of either one. So they can be more expensive. They rot quicker. You have to be get shot more, but do what you can to eat as much fruits and vegetables as you can. And basically, if you do that, you'll be full enough not to eat the stuff that might hurt you more. So eat fruits and vegetables, please. I came across this diagram and I thought it was really fascinating. Primarily just looking at the amount of land that's taken up with cow pasture. Look at that swath of our country. But it's also really interesting seeing all the other things. Like I thought federal wilderness may have been a little bit bigger, but it really isn't. Look at maple syrup, the amount of land that's dedicated to making maple syrup. What do you know? Flowers, golf. Wow. This is the amount of golf courses in America. Private family forests. Gosh dang, that is a lot of land. That's more than federal wilderness. So just this company Weyerhaeuser, where I'm from in Washington, this is how much land just that one. They make forestry products, so they own private, they have private forests that they own to harvest timber from. So wildfires, this is how much area is on fire at any given point. So anyway, take a look at that. It's pretty interesting. And here are global figures for all these different diets. Now, this is what we have currently. Okay, mostly pasture, right? Grow cows, chickens, pigs. We have them on so much land. Now, if we just cut out beef or sheep, so no beef or lamb, look at what we can pretty much half the amount of land that we need. Put it in half. Now, if we go ahead and say no dairy, which for me would be tough because I love cheese, like I could probably go without eating beef, chicken, and pork for a while, or fish, but man, it would be tough to give up. I love eggs, and cheese, but I mean, if you look at that, that's a huge improvement. You don't have all those cows sitting in feedlots. So, and remember, you don't have to give up eating meat. All you gotta do is eat a little bit less, and this planet will be much better off. And you'll still be healthy. You'll still get the enjoyment. So if everybody eats less meat, we would definitely improve ourselves. So there's a reason why we use these concentrated animal feeding operations. You get livestock ready for slaughter easily that way, in a small amount of space, cheaply. Don't need a lot of people to tend to them, but they tend to be crowded, leading to the diseases. just the ethics of it, a lot of people have trouble, and I can definitely sympathize with that. For fed grain, oh yeah, they're not really naturally, they're not supposed to eat anything but grass, but they're fed corn essentially, which really is not really what they should be eating. And they create an enormous amount of organic waste, liquefied poop, basically contaminating everything. But it's less expensive and it keeps costs to us, the consumer, down. So we wouldn't. Part of the reason we've been in the habit of buying beef and chicken, because it's not as expensive as it really is in terms of its environmental impact. All right. So, and then we compare that with free range. Free range grazing allows it to graze on grass during their entire life cycle. So they're born, they just eat grass, they munch away, have their normal life, boom, and then they're slaughtered later on. And it can, not always, but usually free from antibiotics, because they don't have the issues with them getting sick because they are not right next to each other. Okay. And that's something people are really concerned about, is whether there are antibiotics in our food. And the organic waste that the cows leave on the land, that can be just good fertilizer for the plants that are there. And this has been true for thousands of years. Humans, we have burned areas to make it good for pastures, and we kind of placed animals on those pastures. The animals have pooped on the grass, and that has helped to grow the grass. So this can be a process that helps nature, helps ecosystems, increases diversity. We've just taken it a little too far. Like humans, we just take things too far. That's the whole course. We take things too far. We don't know when to stop. And it's at our peril. We negatively impact ourselves when we don't stop ourselves when we should. So this free range idea, as you might imagine, takes longer, takes more land. It's more expensive for consumers. So you don't see it as much. If you see it in the store, put an S in there. It's going to be more expensive if anything's free range. And this is what it looks like. This is from California. You can drive up and down the state. You can see a lot of free range agriculture. When I drive up to Washington State, going through Oregon and Washington, I see a lot of free range. So it's out there. Part of it takes a lot of space, so we're going to see it. And I also see those feedlots. Now, you can go a little too far. If you have too much animals on the land, you can have overgrazing. We talked about earlier, tragedy of the commons. So, overgrazing. Too many animals on a certain area, and we lose the vegetation. Over here, so there's no overgrazing. Over here we had overgrazing. Overgrazing. You can see, whoever's on the left, they're glad they put the fence right there. All right, loss of vegetation, which can lead to soil erosion. As you can imagine, there's no plants on that land holding the soil down. So you're going to have a problem. This is what I was mentioning. You can have a positive effect. So when you have 50% use, so 50% of the plant is eaten, the roots don't start growing. The roots are going good. But the more the plant you take out, the more you can damage the roots. So you don't want to put too many animals on the land. It's better for everybody. That's why the government regulates grazing. that ranchers can't put more than the stipulated amount of cattle on public land. And that's our land the ranchers are on. They're getting it for free, a very small fee, and it benefits themselves by paying that fee, so it gets regulated, so they have a livelihood, the people that do that ranching. So, and if it gets too bad, it can cause desertification, which is exactly what it sounds like. You turn a place into a desert, and nobody wants that. Deserts, they're not good for, for humans or for any of the animals that we want to keep around. So this tends to happen in areas that have low precipitation, degradation of low precipitation regions, and they'll keep getting more arid until they become deserts. So they're already at risk. You remove the plants, you remove a significant amount of moisture that's going to be in the air. You need that moisture for rain. You don't get rain when you don't have the plants. So here's an area at high risk. You look, the desert's right there. These animals are eagerly going after the last remaining plants that are there. And this is a little sobering. You look at this, the vast majority of the land that we rely on is degraded soil. Look at the United States. Pretty much everything is degraded. This is us in California. It's degraded. Then we have massive amounts of heavily degraded soil. I'm not sure if this is meant to be the San Joaquin Valley, but it could be. This is the Midwest, where we have a significant amount of agriculture. Through Mexico, remember, these are areas that we had the Green Revolution, so not a positive thing to soil, this Green Revolution, right? India, another country heavily influenced by the Green Revolution. The consequence is degraded soil. So we got to do better. Remember, humans, we got to stop taking it so far. So less consumption of meat can produce a lot fewer greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrate oxides emissions. So this is all global warming gases to help reduce global warming. These are the greenhouse gases that we're concerned about, especially CO2. But methane, you hear methane, I write it CH4. Conserving water. If we eat less meat, we can drink it instead of using it in the production process. Reduce the use of antibiotics. We don't have as many antibiotic resistant bugs floating around. Maybe I'll say less antibiotic resistance. And that's definitely a good thing. Less growth hormones, we don't want that. All these drugs that we're giving to these animals, they are urinating it out, pooping it out, and it's getting into our water, and then it can get back into our water that we use for drinking and otherwise. And it'll improve the topsoil. Yes, keep it healthier. We're not trampling it, messing it up, pooping all over it, otherwise degrading it. And let's see, more about one thing that's interesting. You think, stay away from the beef, but look at chocolate. Chocolate has a pretty serious impact. Okay, so about the way they make chocolate right now. So I'll just eat chocolate. I love chocolate. Well, chocolate can be an issue too. So here is kind of an idea of, you see, beef is just the highest impact. So if you just stop eating beef and switch to chicken, you're kind of doing a pretty good job. So eat less beef. Even though I love In-N-Out, love my birria, but eat less beef. And if you can, any other kind of meat is good. Just more plants. Eat vegetables and fruits. Except chocolate. That's basically a great thing for you to do. So, the choices we make on that daily basis can affect the, what people are selling. A lot of this, the big companies are kind of doing their thing and they're manipulating people into wanting to eat. I mean, we're really, our minds, we see that delicious hamburger, we want it. So that's really tough to fight against, but if you can, us together, we can, push back. And just by eating less meat, you can make a difference. So every burger, taco, chicken sandwich has an environmental story behind it. So let's eat fewer and fill up on vegetables and fruits.